The arena pulsed. A living thing, really metal ribs stretched across vacuum, each platform clinging like a barnacle to the swirling void. The rings glowed faintly blue, humming with anticipation, straining under gravity generators that flickered in arrhythmic bursts. Above, below, and all around, audience tiers stacked by species rank. The acid breathers high up in their climate domes, the slime-born pressed into filtration pits, humans somewhere near the middle, in rented seats and breathing borrowed air. A gelatinous judge oozed into place atop the central spire. His form glistened like oil and firelight, translucent and bureaucratically obese. A second judge, a shrieking bone bird, landed beside him and immediately vomited a scroll. Thus began the Intergalactic Combat Championship Grand Finals, sponsored by 13 warring empires, 3 collapsing religions, and for reasons unknown, a protein bar called Meat. The scroll unraveled with ceremonial slowness, catching wind from fans disguised as lesser diplomats. The crowd cheered with every foot of parchment revealed. Some screamed in multiple languages. Others vibrated in silent prayer. The championship mattered, not because the outcome changed anything important, like peace, but because it looked like it did. Blood replaced war. Spectacle displaced slaughter. Or so the theory went. The rules, naturally, were simple. No armor. No void tech. No presentient weapons. No biological duplicity beyond 3 layers of flesh. All contestants must sign the waiver in blood, bile, or diplomatic immunity. And the winner, as ever, gained regional rights over Wormhole Zeta 9, Earth's backdoor. The crowd roared again as spotlights swept over the dueling platform. The floor was a blood-stained hex of adaptive sand. Its texture changed depending on species, sometimes liquid, sometimes crystalline. Today, it pulsed under a low-gravity field that made every step a dance with inertia. The sands shifted, remembering pain. Across the galaxy, billions watched. Within the spire, envoys leaned forward. Wagers had been cast. Territories, resources, even personal organs. The Krull ambassador had already eaten his translator in anticipation. No one noticed or cared. Hover screens blazed the combatants' names. Gorvax the Bone Crusher, champion of Tharnak. Ellie Mercer, Homo sapiens, Earth annexed. A beat of stunned silence followed. The crowd processed the second name. Laughter rippled out, species by species, translating across beaks, antennae, and psionic links. The Tharnak delegation howled with delight. The fungal choir from YX 43 collapsed into spores from sheer amusement. A human? Again? Last year's contestant, a geneticist from Toronto, had tripped, inhaled the arena fog, and died 12 seconds in. His death had gone viral. Now here was another one. Ellie Mercer, 23. No combat record. No enhancements flagged. No armor. No entourage. In her designated prep zone, Ellie stood barefoot and unreadable. She adjusted a thin black strap on her shoulder brace. The light above her flickered green, then ultraviolet, then the dull gray reserved for low-threat species. She ignored it. She was counting in her head, not seconds, breaths. Her opponent, Gorvax, was already flexing on the sand, roaring into the crowd's adoration. 10 feet tall, a walking cathedral of muscle and plated bone. Each of his limbs had limbs. Every scar was a story, most of which ended in someone else's funeral. His ceremonial jaw chain rattled as he laughed, hurling insults in Tharnakian that curdled air. Ellie blinked once, then exhaled. Announcing contestant rituals, boomed the AI host, an erratic ex-senator whose code had been corrupted mid-peace treaty 2 centuries ago. As per Intergalactic Combat Guidelines subsection 12, contestants must participate in mutual cultural recognition rites. From the side, a ceremonial technician waddled forward carrying a vat of jelly. Ellie stepped in without a word. The jelly writhed, tasted her skin, made a sound like a satisfied sigh. A four-eyed officiant approached and delivered the traditional slap across her face. She didn't flinch. The crowd cheered again. The humans watching at home groaned. A flicker of text rolled across the upper screens. Ellie Mercer, sister of Ava Mercer, deceased in prior championship. Daughter of unregistered. That word hovered a half-second too long. In the high diplomat box, someone leaned forward. But the registry did not elaborate. A mystery. Or a glitch. Begin combat sequence, the AI declared. Ellie took 2 steps forward. She flexed her fingers once. Gorvax laughed, so hard he bent double. The floor thrummed. The countdown began. 5. She breathed in. 4. The lights shifted to mimic planetary dusk, a setting said to calm apex predators. 3. Gorvax pounded his chest. A thin mist of spores surrounded him, his pheromones turning the local air acidic. 2. Ellie stepped sideways, aligning her foot with a faint seam in the arena floor. A tremor passed through the sand. 1. In her head, a voice, not her own, spoke. If they laugh, let them. But when they swing, make sure they never lift their arms again. 0. Gorvax launched forward with the force of a meteor. The arena shook. Metal groaned. The crowd roared. Ellie ducked. Not just ducked, slid. The gravity had just flickered. She predicted it. And her body moved like it knew secrets the bones of giants had forgotten. As Gorvax's fist slammed down where she'd stood, she tapped his right knee with her left fingers. Softly. A note in a song. He stumbled. Not now. Not yet. But soon. The audience didn't notice. They were too busy watching the spectacle of a human doing exactly what humans did best. Survive momentarily. Everyone expected it to end within 30 seconds. The crowd was getting popcorn, or its tentacled equivalent. But the AI host paused, then said, "Huh." Ellie circled slowly. Her lips didn't move, but her mind flicked through thousands of variables. Muscle tension, arena tilt, distance to the edge, blood flow observed through thin insectoid joints. She remembered what her father taught her, not in words, but in patterns. Her father had no medals, no grave. He had only rumors. Somewhere in the audience, one alien blinked and said softly, "Mercer?" The announcers missed it. One of them exploded from excitement and reassembled mid-sentence. Gorvax snarled, finally sensing something. He charged again. Ellie moved. Not fast. Not frantic. Right. Her body folded around his limbs like wire around machinery. A foot sweep turned into a pivot. His bulk overcorrected. He caught himself, roared, and swung wide. A miss. This time, she jabbed him, not a punch, a pressure. 3 knuckles against a thin cluster of sensory fibers just beneath his carapace. He roared, spun, and collapsed. Not fully. Not yet. But enough that the laughter in the crowd began to shift. In the diplomat box, bets froze. Across 3 empires, watching analysts paused mid-laugh. Something was wrong. Or rather, something was right, and that was terrifying. Ellie stood still, her breath slow. She watched Gorvax writhe and right himself again. He screamed, voice panicked now. Because he realized this wasn't a fight. It was a lesson. She had no enhancements, no armor, no weapon. But she had timing, nerve, legacy. The floor beneath her flickered violet, mark of a turning tide. In the shadows above the arena, a cloaked vessel watched. Its weapon stayed cold. Its sensors locked on Ellie's heartbeat. And down below, the crowd leaned in. One of their own was losing. A girl was winning. And no one, not one of them, knew who had trained her. Yet, Ellie took one last breath, then stepped forward again. And the fight was just beginning. Ellie Mercer didn't stretch before fights. Stretching was for dancers, for optimists. She stood still instead, perfectly unervingly still, as though her muscles had long since agreed they wouldn't betray her. The arena's adaptive sand shifted beneath her bare feet, searching for her weight signature, failing to classify it. The system flagged her movement as glitch or ghost. The system was wrong. Across from her, Gorvax roared. Again. Louder this time, with a full flex of his 6 upper limbs. The spiked plates down his spine flared like a threatened reptile. A show of dominance, of teeth and bulk. His people respected noise. They mistook silence for surrender. Ellie tilted her head slightly and blinked. In a flash of internal monologue, a mental voice cut through the din like wire through silk. If he's showing you the teeth, he hasn't picked the weapon yet. Her father's voice, still sharp, still intact. She did not indulge in memories, not during combat, but certain phrases were muscle deep. You didn't have to remember what had never left you. Gorvax charged again. It wasn't subtle, he never was. A wind of acidic heat whipped across the ring as his legs churned the low-grav surface into a storm of grit. The audience cheered, the odds boards lit up, and somewhere in the commentary booth, a squid collapsed from joy. Ellie sidestepped. One foot, then the other. Not dodging, timing. Gorvax overshot by a meter and stumbled. Just slightly, just enough. Ellie exhaled. She caught the tremor in his outer thigh, the minute delay in his left joint. A weakness he didn't even know was there. She could smell the adrenaline leaking through his scent glands. Not the good kind. The kind that meant panic was circling his brain like a hungry hawk. Her lips curled, just faintly. It wasn't a smile. It was the echo of one. The galaxy loved stories about strength. It admired towering species, weaponized bone structures, evolutionary marvels with claws for tongues. But it never truly respected training. Not the kind passed from father to daughter. Not the kind done in silence, in gravity chambers so dense they bent memory. Not the kind that taught her how to break every species in the arena with the same 3 fingers. Her father trained ghosts. Not soldiers. Not mercenaries. Ghosts. People who moved like myths and struck like fate. Ellie had watched him build killers out of medics, philosophers, disillusioned dropouts. None of them talked about the things they'd done after. But they survived, and some part of that training lived inside her now, humming like a second heartbeat. Gorvax had none of that. He had muscles and roar. She had legacy. He attacked again, wilder this time, his claws slicing the arena mist into glowing ribbons. Ellie moved low, pivoted on her heel, and tapped the back of his thorax. A touch. Nothing more. But the nerve cluster beneath his carapace lit up like it had been kissed by lightning. He shrieked. The audience leaned forward. She didn't follow up. Not yet. Ellie believed in patience, the kind her father had forced into her through drills, repetition, and silence. Wait for the opening. Then end it. Her attacks weren't made to wound. They were designed to conclude. The camera drones hovered close. One focused on her face. Her eyes gave it nothing. No rage, no delight. Just calibration. Measurement. The announcers, desperate to fill airtime, started spinning wild theories. She's been enhanced. Illicit tech. Maybe she's drugged. They couldn't accept what was in front of them. A girl from a minor planet, without armor, without weapons, systematically dismantling the galaxy's finest monster with choreographed indifference. Ellie heard none of it. What she did hear, buried in the chaotic roar, was the subtle frequency hum of the arena's pulse. It moved like a slow heartbeat, adjusting terrain pressures. Every third beat, the sand softened. On the 5th, it sharpened. Gorvax had noticed. She had. She planned around it. He came again, swinging low this time, a move learned from mammals. The sweep should have taken her legs. It didn't. Ellie flipped backwards, landed in a crouch, and ran 3 steps up the curvature of the ring wall before launching back at him. She hit his clavicle with her elbow. A crack followed. He screamed. The audience went quiet. Not silent, but confused. Fear hadn't entered the arena yet. Just disbelief. Ellie stepped back, examining him. Gorvax panted. His arms twitched. His posture shifted subtly from predator to cornered beast. He wasn't thinking about victory anymore. He was thinking about how this had happened. The shift was critical. She recognized it. That moment when warriors remember they can die. Her sister had reached that point. Ava, the bright one, the funny one. Ava had joked all the way to the arena, had laughed at the fog, at the scroll, even at the ceremonial slap. But she hadn't seen the strike coming. 12 seconds. That was all they gave her. They laughed then. As Ellie watched from orbit, unable to stop it. She hadn't been trained yet. Not fully. Not enough. But that loss had burned a hole in her. And her father had come out of hiding. They trained on broken moons, in forgotten bases left behind from wars older than the Empire's current flag. Her father taught her anatomy not with books, but with captured enemies. How to fight species she'd never met. How to count the breath between a lie and a kill. How to measure odds not in numbers, but in silences. He never called her daughter during training. Never hugged her. Never used her name. Only you. And again. But on the day she landed a blow that would have crippled him had he not been wearing 5 layers of armor, he paused. Just once. And said, "Now you can bury her right." That had been enough. Ellie turned her eyes to the diplomat box high above the arena. Some of them were standing now, watching, whispering. Mercer. The name wasn't supposed to be known anymore. He had erased himself after the last rebellion, after the Black Fleet War, after humanity was folded back into the Galactic order like a domesticated predator. But ghosts couldn't stay buried forever. Below, Gorvax charged again. Sloppy. Desperate. Ellie sidestepped, grabbed one of his secondary limbs, and used his own momentum to slam him headfirst into the sand. The ground pulsed violet again. The betting algorithm hiccuped. Odds were down to 200:1. Then 50. Then 3:1. The announcer's voice cracked. Ladies and lords and gelatinous entities, we may be witnessing, well, something incredibly illegal or historically significant. Gorvax didn't get up right away. He rolled, gasping. Ellie knelt beside him and whispered something. The mics didn't catch it, but his face changed. Whatever she said ended him. He swung half-heartedly. She let it pass. There was no need to finish it now. Let the galaxy see him breathe. Let them see that she could have ended it, and chose not to. Control was more terrifying than cruelty. She stepped back, hands loose, breathing even. And for the first time since the arena began, the crowd didn't cheer. They watched, waiting. Ellie turned her face toward the camera. Not smiling, just present. She was no longer a human girl from Earth. She was something else now. She was her father's final message, delivered in flesh and restraint. And the galaxy had started listening. The air had shifted, not just in temperature or pressure, but in tone, a subtle, collective tightening in the bodies watching from behind reinforced glass, psychic domes, and evaporating clouds of pheromone-laced breath. It was the kind of shift that happens when the punchline doesn't land, when laughter catches in the throat, when the universe realizes the story might end differently than expected. Gorvax the Bone Crusher blinked through a haze of pain and disbelief. His knees had touched the sand twice. Once from impact, once from hesitation. Both were shameful. He was a Tharnak war champion, undefeated for 6 cycles, heir to a lineage of eviscerators. His people had invented 7 distinct words for domination, none of which accounted for a human elbow. But here he was, bleeding from a nerve cluster he didn't know he had, breathing ragged through 2 punctured chambers, and staring at a girl half his size who moved like silence with intent. Ellie Mercer stood exactly where she needed to be, not in front of him, not behind, but between his next breath and the realization that he'd already lost. In the skybox, ambassadors argued over rapidly fluctuating data. Several refused to update their bets, insisting it was glitch interference or Earth propaganda. A representative from the Molt Republic demanded the arena be shut down and sanitized before further embarrassment occurred. No one listened. The crowd was too invested now. The drone cameras swiveled to Gorvax's face, shocked, angry, and bruised with the kind of disbelief that only the previously invincible can feel. Ellie tilted her head, assessing him again. Still too much rage, she thought. Not enough understanding. He was going to charge. Again. He did. This time, he roared louder than before, hoping to shatter the rhythm of the moment, to reclaim the tempo. His species were sound fighters, trained to disrupt focus with volume, to dominate mental space with sheer auditory force. But Ellie didn't flinch. Her father had made her train with white noise pumped into her skull. She had meditated through sonic bombardments, fought under strobe patterns designed to break thought loops. Roaring was for those who feared the silence. She closed the gap instead. Gorvax wasn't ready for that. She was inside his guard before he could reorient. A shoulder dipped. A palm struck his inner wrist. A pressure point he didn't know existed sparked like a nerve lightning rod. He reeled. She stepped around him, fluid, surgical. The crowd shrieked, not in horror, but in the thrill of spectacle turned upside down. The bettors were panicking. The bookies scrambling. One corner of the arena's financial dashboard blinked out from stress. The announcer's voice stuttered through the chaos. Mercer. Ellie Mercer appears to, have disarmed the Tharnak champions, upper left claw, which he is now holding like it's a newborn. Incredible technique. Possibly illegal. Possibly art. Gorvax was wheezing. His mass had become his cage. Every ounce of muscle now required precious oxygen. He'd never needed to pace himself before. Most matches ended in 10 seconds. He'd trained for explosion, not endurance. But Ellie? Ellie didn't care how long it took. Her movements were smaller now, like she was calibrating every step to his breath. She wasn't showy. She wasn't grand. And that made it worse. She dodged another strike, a lazy one. His balance was gone. She let him fall forward, watched him catch himself too hard, too late. In the skybox, the Tharnak ambassador had stopped breathing, his gills fluttering in stunned intervals. No one dared speak his champion's name now. It might summon the ghost of defeat. The central monitor displayed a split screen. Ellie, calm and unreadable. Gorvax, panting like a beast running out of chase. And then came the second roar. Not from Gorvax. From the audience. From the shifting multitude of species, now realizing something sacred had been violated. The narrative, the comforting lie of galactic superiority, had cracked. Humans were supposed to be cute, chaotic, tragically brave. Not this. Not better. Ellie turned toward the noise and, for the first time, acknowledged it. Just with her eyes. Just for a second. The crowd went quiet again. Gorvax seized the moment. He launched himself in a desperate, final gambit, body arched, every limb in motion, venom glands flooding. A move designed to obliterate. One that had ended dozens before. It didn't land. Ellie ducked low, pivoted at the last possible moment, and placed her palm, flat, slow, against the back of his thorax. The arena mist caught in the light, as Gorvax slammed into the sand like a collapsed cathedral. Silence. True silence. The crowd couldn't process it. The announcers froze. The judges looked at one another, uncertain whether to declare a pause, a foul, a finale. Ellie stepped back and watched him twitch. She could end it. Now. She knew the three-point strike that would paralyze him. The pressure map of his final nerve route sat vivid in her memory like a glowing schematic. But she didn't strike. Instead, she crouched, just slightly, and whispered something inaudible into Gorvax's ear. His eyes widened. And then he stopped moving. Not from injury. Not from fear. From understanding. Because what she had whispered wasn't a threat, or an insult, or even a tactical revelation. It was a name. A name only a handful of war-bred beings still remembered. Mercer. General Mercer. The man who broke the Silac siege with 3 cloaked vessels and a lie. The ghost who erased a fleet using their own hunger for power. The tactician who was supposed to have vanished after the human annexation, either dead, imprisoned, or mythologized. He had a daughter? He had trained her? And she was here? Ellie stood. The lights hadn't dimmed. The match hadn't been called. But it was over. Everyone knew it. Even Gorvax. Especially Gorvax. The arena finally caught up with itself. A chime sounded. The technical signal for incapacitation by discretion. Rarely used. Reserved for moments when the fight continued but the meaning had changed. The screen flashed red. Ellie Mercer, victorious, pending review. The announcers babbled half-coherent reactions. The AI host rebooted twice mid-sentence. A drone zipped dangerously close to her face, scanning for illegal augmentations. It found nothing. The data was clean. Somewhere high above, a command relay opened. A signal was sent from the arena's control dome to Galactic Command, encrypted and ancient. The words were brief. She's his. And beneath that, Contingency Alpha may require reactivation. But Ellie knew none of that. She walked to the edge of the ring, breathing slow, her hands unclenched. Her expression remained blank, not because she felt nothing, but because too much waited behind the veil of control. Her father had taught her many things. But above all, never win the fight the way they expect you to. She paused just before exiting the arena floor, turned, faced the thousands, and nodded once. A single gesture. Not pride, not defiance, just recognition. She wasn't here to win. She was here to remind them. And they had remembered. Gorvax hadn't moved in 81 seconds. The arena's kill threshold timer, a brutal remnant of Tharnak military influence, ticked upward with every twitchless breath. The audience, a kaleidoscope of predatory eyes and iridescent membranes, stared. Some held their breath because they had lungs. Others simply locked their attention, their instincts quieted by the strangest phenomenon of all, a human not dying. Ellie Mercer stood just beyond her opponent's prone mass, not gloating, not celebrating. Her feet were rooted on the sand like she'd grown there, slow and deliberate, every muscle at ease and ready. One hand dangled loose. The other hovered near her hip in the quiet, half-circle humans instinctively formed when preparing to draw. There was no weapon. There hadn't ever been. Only her. The moment had gone on too long. And now it would end. With a sound like thunder biting through glass, Gorvax's arm twitched. He rose. Not in triumph, but as though summoned by ritual. The crowd exhaled, unsure whether to cheer or scream. Some already had bets recalculated mid-breath. Blood still trickled from the crease behind his carapace, the spot she'd touched with surgical certainty. One more inch, one more second, and he'd have lost use of his arm. He knew that now. Knew it the way prey knows when it's already bleeding. He faced her, trembling, not from fear, not entirely, but from the awful, acidic truth that no one in the galaxy had ever told him before. He wasn't the apex predator in the room. Ellie didn't step back. She waited. Let him stand fully, if he could. Let him reclaim his dignity, what little remained. Gorvax spat a glob of blood-soaked venom onto the arena floor and narrowed his 12 eyes. "I will kill you," he rasped. She blinked once. Calm. Measured. "No," she said. "You'll lose with honor." He snarled, charged one last time. Not for victory. For redemption. She didn't move until he was close enough to strike. And then she vanished. Not literally. There was no cloaking. No warp. But the movement was so surgically precise, so anti-telegraphed, that to most of the crowd, she simply disappeared. She dropped to a knee, pivoted on her heel, and placed the flat of her hand against his inner thoracic joint. Again, that nerve cluster. This time, the angle was deeper. This time, the strike landed. The sound he made wasn't a roar. It was a stifled, wet gasp. He fell forward, all 10 limbs stiffening before collapse. His momentum tried to carry him forward, but she stepped aside without effort, and he struck the sand so hard the arena platform flickered under the strain. The silence that followed wasn't surprise anymore. It was realization. A legend had just been born. Ellie straightened, took 2 calm steps back, and turned to the judges. One of them, the gelatinous magistrate, slid partially off his pedestal in what might have been shock. Another, a crystalline entity, was already frantically communicating with a homeworld representative, legal precedent scrolls flickering across its surface. The final judge, a bureaucrat with too many fingers and not enough spine, finally announced. Match concluded by combat incapacitation. Ellie Mercer of Earth declared victor. No one clapped. Not yet. But the quiet wasn't cold. It was processing. Processing the shift in power. The rules rewritten in real time. Above, in the diplomatic chamber, the Tharnak ambassador slammed his claw into the armrest, splintering 3 inches of ancient wood. His aide leaned in, whispering urgently. Data was flowing in. Too fast. Earthborn. Mercer lineage. Historical red flags pulsing like wounded stars. "Get me Galactic High Command," the ambassador hissed. Now, in the adjacent gallery, the human delegation stood silent. Not cheering, not smug, just quiet, because they knew something the others hadn't yet accepted. This wasn't just a fight. It was a declaration. Ellie stepped off the platform. Her feet left faint imprints in the arena sand, the kind that wouldn't last more than seconds before the regeneration field wiped them clean. But for that moment, the path she'd carved was unmistakable. A camera drone hovered in front of her face, seeking emotion, hoping for a quote. She ignored it, but someone else didn't. A voice echoed from the comm dome, high above, calm, clipped, authoritative. "Mercer," it said, "this is unauthorized. Cease all motion and prepare for diplomatic detainment." The crowd turned. No one could see who spoke, but Ellie smiled, just faintly. The kind of smile born in war zones, the kind you wear when people start thinking they understand what's happening. "I'm not under your jurisdiction," she said, walking calmly across the exit threshold. The comms flickered, then hissed, then cut, and above, orbiting in stealth, something shifted. The cloaked object that had held position for hours began to decloak. Not fully, just enough to cast a shadow across the arena floor. At first, the diplomats thought it was a trick of the light. Then they saw the shape, the unmistakable outline of a human warship, a class long thought decommissioned, outlawed, or mythologized. The Arclight, Mercer's ship. No insignia, no call sign. Just that profile, infamous in battle reports, hated in hushed war councils. One ambassador screamed. Another sent a request to initiate emergency peace renegotiations. A third simply shut down their life systems and pretended to be dead. Ellie didn't look up. She kept walking. Each step radiated certainty, the kind that terrified mathematicians and tacticians alike. The crowd didn't cheer. They watched. And then someone near the center stood. A small, silver-skinned envoy, eyes blinking in slow, rhythmic awe. "She is the general's daughter," he said. "This is not a match." It was a message. Those words echoed across the arena like a stone dropped in still water. Because they were true, Ellie reached the arena's final gate. The guard stationed there, two four-armed Lurani elite, veterans of the Crimson Collapse, did not raise their weapons. She passed between them, nodded once, and stepped into the corridor. Behind her, the silence snapped. First a murmur, then a roar. It wasn't admiration. Not yet. It was fear. Raw, ancestral, laced with something deeper. Recognition. The galaxy, for all its grand ships and federations, had always relied on the myth of human tameness. That Earth had been conquered. That its people had learned their place. But no one conquered ghosts. And Ellie was proof that Mercer hadn't died. He had simply gone home, trained her, and waited. Inside the corridor, Ellie paused. A figure was waiting. Human. Tall. Gray uniform. Rankless, faceless, familiar. She didn't flinch. The figure held out a thin, metal cylinder. She took it. "Earth's response?" she asked. The figure gave a small nod. "Pending." Ellie pressed her thumb to the cylinder. A flicker. It opened. Inside a chip. A command sequence. Her father's. Not an attack order. Not yet. Just a transmission. A final message. She turned it over in her palm. Felt its weight. Then whispered to the corridor. "Play it." A flicker of blue. The hallway dimmed. And his voice came through. Not loud. Not angry. Measured. Quiet. Like stone weathered by time. "If you're hearing this, it means they've remembered you. Good. Remind them what forgetting costs." Silence. Then static. Then darkness. Ellie pocketed the chip. She didn't need more. The doors at the far end of the corridor opened, revealing the boarding tube to the cloaked ship, now fully revealed above the arena. Its lights blinked like a waiting storm. Behind her, alarms began. Not from the fight. From everywhere else. Galactic Command had just received the signal, and war protocol had shifted from containment to compliance. Ellie stepped aboard the transport. No fanfare, No goodbye. Only a final glance at the arena, where the galaxy had just learned. Mercer didn't die. He sent his daughter. And Earth? Earth was ready.